Hey everybody, what's going on? Hey, it's James, back here in the West for another edition. Right now, throw on listening to, this is Yusef Lateef live at Cranbrook, 1958 on Cadet. I don't know if you can hear that. Turn it up a notch or so. Yeah, 1958 on Cadet, live at Cranbrook. I thought of this, threw this on because this past weekend, me, Sherv, and Alex hung out in Southern California, went to, bought some records, and afterwards spent some time at a brewery, having a beer, some snacks, shooting the breeze, and Yusef Lateef came up, and I think Sherv specifically was talking about how his earlier stuff, like kind of right out of the gate, he was completely advanced. You know, as we all know, he was the first or one of the first to add, bring in, you know, Eastern thought and Eastern sounds into jazz. And so, yeah, we just had a nice discussion about his discography and and the man he is and the man he was. So, I don't know, it got me thinking about maybe having a quick talk about Yusef. I won't go all into this history and influences because all of you or most of you already know the story. Like I mentioned about his influence, the influences he brought into jazz. It's funny because I think Sherv said it many years ago. You know, Yusef's birth name was William Huddleston. And it goes to show you how important a name is, you know, obviously for a band, but for an individual. I mean, if he had gone with William Huddleston his whole career, we would have perceived him differently. I mean, the music would still be the music, but he would be perceived a little bit differently. I mean, Yusef Lateef just, it exactly matches the man he was, the spirit he was, the musician he was, the composer. So anyway, a side note, so I thought I'd just show what I have. I know he has tons of albums. I have some of them, certainly not all. But yeah, and you know, a few of these collections. This is a comp on Savoy called Angel Eyes. It's a double, all stuff from 1959, recorded in Hackensack, New Jersey. It's a double. I don't know if this is a twofer or a comp. It might say somewhere in the notes in the gatefold. I'm not quite sure. So that's Angel Eyes. Here's another great one. Another double on Savoy with this whole series Savoy did in the 70s with these illustrated cover. This is a one called Gong, a double. And all this was recorded in 1957 in New Jersey with Wilbur Hardin, Hugh Lawson, Ernie Farrow, and Oliver Jackson. And, you know, with these Savoy doubles, you know, they did that interesting thing of putting in the liner notes, kind of, you know, not vertically, but, you know, like that. Yeah, these comps are great. All these Savoy comps. There's like a Curtis Fuller. There's some other ones, but nice packaging on these. That's Yusef Lateef Gong. Here's one. This is a double on Fantasy. These Fantasy twofers that came out. The Many Faces of Yusef Lateef. This is actually a twofer. This has, let's see, this is from, what albums is this from? Oh, The Three Faces of Yusef Lateef, The Centaur, and yeah, and those two albums. So, Yusef Lateef, twofer on Fantasy. Here's this these Impulse Dedication Series. This is Live at Pep's. All this is from Live at Pep's, but I can't remember. I get it all mixed up. This might be the actual Live at Pep's album plus some extras, I think, or the track listing's a little bit different. I get it all mixed up because there was that original Live at Pep's, and then there was this other single record that came out. It wasn't called Volume 2, but I forgot what it was called. But, you know, Live at Pep's is probably not just, in my opinion, one of Yusef's most smoking albums, but just one of the most smoking jazz records that I can think of. And the great Richard Williams on trumpet on this one, who is underrated. I feel like he gets lost in the shuffle of all the great trumpet players from that era, from, you know, the late 50s into the 60s. Yeah, so Yusef Lateef, and this is officially called the Live Session. Yeah, but it's essentially Live at Pep's. Impulse, 1984. Impulse, the Golden Flute. Here's an interesting one. This is on Prestige. It's called Expression. I don't know if this was an actual album or it came out later on with a different title. I mean, it seems like an original pressing. This is from 1957, and it has some of that. It has that same lineup at some of that Hackensack, New Jersey. So, but they're different songs. So, I don't know about that. If anyone knows about that, but great, great cover shot of Yusef. Eastern Sounds, as we all know, one of the great records. This one in particular, I think this is the first record of his that I got when I started getting heavily into jazz in the mid 90s. And this record, it didn't just open my eyes to what jazz could be, but really just in general opened my eyes to just different musical forms. Not a lot to say about this because we all know what a great record this is, but when I remember listening to this over and over and over when I got it, and just completely blown away. The sounds, the rhythms, the whole feel of this really opened my eyes to what jazz could be. Landmark record, The Plum Blossom. I mean, what a beautiful track, and even the love themes from Spartacus. I mean, it's all great. It's all great. Eastern Sounds. Here's Into Something, like an alternative cover. This is like an old reissue of this that probably came out in the 70s. I don't quite know, but we all know how great that one is. This is Yusef Lateef. I think this is a collection. Well, it says it's a collection. I don't know what albums this is from. This is Yusef Lateef. Yeah. Cry Tender. Another great one, another one that opened my eyes, and one of the great cover shots. Beautiful photography. Then Atlantic stuff, the complete Yusef, and last but not least, the Gentle Giant on both of these on Atlantic. Not so much into his Atlantic stuff compared to the others, and in fact, Atlantic Jazz. I think Sherv and I have talked about this too. Atlantic Jazz overall is a little lacking, except for obviously Coltrane and some Ornette. But yeah, I want to do a quick run through on Yusef. I mean, as I mentioned in the beginning, we all know the history and his influence, but maybe doesn't get talked about enough. But of course, you could say that about a lot of artists. They don't get talked about enough. But I mean, for me personally, he's one of my favorites. But I often forget, gets lost in the shuffle. when I'm looking for stuff to listen to, I sometimes pass it over because like, oh yeah, like I'm so familiar with that, but then I forget like how great it is. Kind of like Coltrane too, same thing. Where like it's such a monolith in the collection that you kind of overlook it. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that, or wanted to talk about him because I've been listening to him today here in the West, and I did want to close with a story. I was fortunate enough to see him, see Yusef Lateef twice live. Once in like 95, 96 in San Francisco at the Grace Cathedral. Grace Cathedral is a really, really old church up in Nob Hill. I mean, it's a cathedral. It's not a church. It's a cathedral. It's just beautiful. Oh, I don't know when it was built. Maybe in the 20s. And he was just at that time. He was still. Not still, but he was old at that time. He died when he was 93. So I think maybe he was around 80 back then. And so he was just sitting on a stool on the stage, and he had a table next to him. And his band, it was all acoustic, it was all percussion. There were a lot of percussion, and he would just look over the table and like randomly pick up an instrument here and there. He'd pick up a flute, he'd pick up, some Chinese bells, he'd pick up a wood block, he'd pick up, whatever. He would just pick up different things based on how he felt. And there was a few other musicians with him. Can't remember. One of them was Adam Rudolph. I do know that. Adam Rudolph was kind of standing up the whole time playing. Can't remember what that instrument is called. But he was playing a lot of percussion and little conga here and there, little percussion instruments, bells, chimes, Chinese instruments. Really cool show. And then the second time I saw him was probably 2003 or 4, also in San Francisco, and I can't remember the name of the place. It's a hall right across the street from City Hall, right there on Van Ness Street, and somehow my friend and I that we went and somehow we scored front row, and it's this hall, small hall, maybe seats 300-400 people, but somehow we got front row. Same kind of thing as the first show where he was sitting and had a table next to him, and he would randomly pick up an instrument here and there, just kind of how he felt, completely improvised. And he's a big guy. With that shaved head, he's very imposing, and I'm in front row, almost center, almost front row center, and so I'm probably like looking up to him. I'm maybe 6-7 feet away from him, and at one point he kind of like between one of the songs when he was just. They were kind of waiting to start the next one. He looks at me and he locked eyes at me and he held my gaze. And it was very powerful. It felt like God was looking at me. It was just Yusef just looking at me and with these very aware eyes, just noticing me and looking at me. I'm not religious. I don't believe in any of that crap. But that's the closest I think I'll ever get to feeling like a supernatural being is looking at me and noticing me. Very intense experience. Really cool show, cool moment. But yeah, I thought I'd leave it on that note. Just a great, great man. Ahead of his time musically. Vegetarian. Long before, decades and decades before it became popular. I think I read something too where starting in maybe the late 70s, he started putting in his contract where he wouldn't play shows that served alcohol. because of his beliefs, and he also felt like it, from a practical standpoint, it just distracted people from enjoying the music. So anyhow, that's it. James here in the West, just, honor and respect for Yusef Lateef. So yeah, maybe we could make this Monday, or maybe April 7th will now be Yusef Lateef Day. We can just go ahead and create it. All right, everybody, take it easy. All right, later.